Good morning, New Zealand. Middle of the week, Wednesday. It's the 13th of August, and this is Daybreak. Yep, 13th of August, and did I tell you that we have a new mug? No, not my mug. This mug, Daybreak, just arrived, and they will be available for sale at the Forum on the Family. So there we go. You can get your supply of mugs to add to the mug on Daybreak. All right, let's check out some of the news that I just want to highlight to you this morning. This is an interesting one from Erica Stanford, Minister of Education, who says that Maori words from future junior books are going to be cut. It's apparently a paper showed that the decision was driven by concern that Maori words were confusing for children. Learning to read English through evidence of that was mixed, and so all they'll do is have character names. This is one of those battles that I just don't think warrants the energy. So what if they have tamariki, words, whānau, and one of the books that they banned only had 7 Maori words. If there's specific nouns or labels that are being used, that is very different to having a whole sentence in a different language. I understand the concerns that if you're going to go bilingual, then you should have specific Maori lessons, learning the language in its context. But when it's just labels that are often used, like whānau, tamariki, for example, kai, kia ora, then that's just part of the vernacular of New Zealand, isn't it? And I think this is a battle that's not worth having for the government. I'm not quite sure why they're taking it on and getting distracted to this level. Yeah, interesting one. Strike 2 on Willow Jean Prime. Labor's Willow Jean Prime, who some touted as a possible future leader of Labor, no longer. Willow Jean Prime is the one who was approached to have some inter-party discussions about the changes to NCEA, didn't even respond to the texts. I mean, if she didn't want to be part of it and wanted to keep it partisan, she could at least reply and say, no, I'll speak to my officials, I will examine what's going on, and we will have a response. But she didn't even reply. And so that was strike 1. Strike 2 now is that she's making claims that there's fight clubs and significant meth use in youth justice facilities. The only problem is that Oranga Tamariki can't find any evidence of it. The Children's Commissioner, who isn't exactly the most right-wing office in the land, can't find evidence of it. The Children's Minister, Karen Chor, from ACT, has asked for more information, but Willow Jean Prime can't provide anything. She just says, oh, I heard it. Anecdotal evidence from a credible source. This is one thing that I've learned in this job, that it's hard to win trust, but it's easily lost. And Willow Jean Prime has easily lost it with these 2 incidences over the past 7 days. Whenever you make claims, make sure you have credible sources on it and do your homework. A friend of mine used to say, Bob, make sure you get your ducks in a row. In other words, make sure that what you're saying has some credible standing and can't be just shot down as they have done with this particular example. Obviously, lots of discussion in Parliament about this so-called Palestinian state, which apparently is going to solve the whole Middle East issue, which we know it's not. But interesting study in the Australian Today reported, which says the 89-year-old Palestinian Authority leader who convinced Anthony Albanese, the Australian Prime Minister, to recognise a Palestinian state, apparently has the support of less than 1 in 6 people in Gaza. So he's not even popular, less than 1 in 6. That's less popular than Chris Hipkins and Christopher Luxon. And satisfaction with Hamas, the terrorist organisation in the Palestinian area, in Gaza, sits at nearly 60%. There's your problem with a 2-state solution. Unfortunately, the people of Gaza still support a terrorist group, Hamas, and they don't support the solution. that all these countries are coming up with. And so we're not going to see that solution. As well as that, we're getting false information coming out from Gaza. Here's another example. And of course, the media say that, you know, an innocent journalist was killed. No, the IDF says that there's evidence of secure communication line between this network of where the journalist instructing the news agency on how to cover the conflict in alignment with Hamas. And Israel has provided evidence that many Al Jazeera journalists in Gaza were also members of Hamas's military wing. Yeah, if they weren't members of Al Jazeera, they were members of UN groups. Yeah, remember that? So please use discernment on any information that is coming out of Gaza, sadly. One of those not using discernment is, of course, our good friend Chloe Schwarbrick, who at the weekend said that anger won't get us anywhere. Nope, no anger. But next minute, she turned up in Parliament and, with her Gaza tea towel and said this.
Speaker, I will reiterate my call for the government to pick up our unlawful occupation of Palestine sanctions bill and to sanction Israel for its war crimes. If we find 6 of 68 government MPs with a spine, we can stand on the right
Sounds
side
angry.
of history.
That is completely unacceptable to make that statement. Withdraw it and apologise.
No.
Then leave the House for the rest of the week.
Happily.
Yeah, absolutely. Apparently you can't insult other MPs. You can use offensive words like the C word in Parliament because that's quoting somebody, but you can't insult other members of Parliament. But she does sound angry, doesn't she? Actually, that photo that Stuff used in their article I thought was a bit mean. I mean, that's not a very flattering photo of Chloe, is it? And I did see a comment come through on, oh, no, I can't find it. Somebody commented on the two-state solution. It's not a two-state solution. It's an eradication of one. And that is true. It's what I've always argued. If Hamas put down their weapons, there would be peace. If Israel put down their weapons, there would be no Israel. And anybody who thinks through the whole situation will understand that. The attacks continue on Christopher Luxon. Now, I'm not here to defend Christopher Luxon. I'm not a big supporter, but then again, I'm happy to acknowledge if someone is being a prime minister and doing the things that a prime minister should. Anyway, the spin-off is having a storm in a teacup because they're concerned that Christopher Luxon went up the top of a beautiful mountain in Queenstown over the weekend with Anthony Albanese from Australia, the prime minister, and they had a little cake cutting ceremony with a pavlova and argued about who owns a pavlova. Now, personally, I thought it was great tourism advertising. For all the Australians who are watching it, they would say, wow, that looks spectacular. But no, our whiny spin-off were very upset about this little clip. Let me show you what they posted to social media. This is what Christopher Luxon posted.
Well, look, to all our Australian and Kiwi friends, I think quite clearly and I have resolved it today.
Clearly it's half-half. Australia, New Zealand.
This is a compromise solution. We all know the Kiwis invented the pavlova. They stole it. They try and claim it. But you've seen pieces broken out up here on this mountain today in South Island, eh?
This is clearly Australian.
That's Australian with your Tim Tams.
Yeah.
And that's us with our Kiwi friends. That's a good way
Problem-
to go. I mean, I think
problem solved.
We have solved a centuries-old debate.
And we had to come up here to
do
do
it.
it.
Yeah, okay. Pretty, this is what you get on TikTok and Instagram. But, you know, they're very upset. The media are very upset that he's gone up there. And this is mainly, as I say, that video, warm trans-Tasman relationships, beautiful scenery, great for tourism. But this is part of the general attack on Christopher Luxon as Prime Minister. The latest was Andrea Vance in the Post yesterday. You know, Luxon's leadership running out of oxygen as the polls tighten. The fact of the matter is, if you look at the polls, and of course they're all going on this latest one from One News, is that he's still the most preferred Prime Minister. Once again, I'm not defending him as in his role as Prime Minister. I'm just stating some facts which you are not hearing in the media. The media have the guns out for Luxon. And I want to show you a very interesting graph, and I want you to watch the percentages on this. So this is preferred Prime Minister, and it starts with Jacinda as Prime Minister, right? And what's she up? She's up in the 30% because she could do no wrong. Luxon was always in the very low 20s over time, okay? This is 2022. And then, obviously, Jacinda is replaced and Chris Hipkins comes in. And you'll notice there that Luxon is just constantly hovering around 20%. And this is May 2023, just before the election, a couple of months before the election. Look at that. He is below Chris Hipkins and he's in the high teens. What is he? 18. And who won the election? By a bit of a landslide, actually. And who lost it? Labour. So when you hear the media go on about lowest ever preferred Prime Minister, take it with a grain of salt, because actually that statistic there is not the key one. The key one is this one, and which side of Parliament is going to win. And the fact of the matter is that the Greens sorry, not that's the preferred Prime Minister, I haven't got the party one, but the fact of the matter is the Greens and Te Pāti Maori aren't polling that well. The Greens just can't get above 10%, even though Chloe says they're the leader of the opposition. But they can't get above 10, 11%. And Te Pāti Maori are so radical that they barely poll. And so you've actually got National, New Zealand First and ACT actually still holding the balance of power. But once again, that's some of the media narrative that you won't hear. Interesting article this morning in the New Zealand Herald. They did a media wellbeing survey by Media Chaplaincy New Zealand, and they got 200 journalists completed the online survey, so it's kind of self-selected, but some interesting results. The results highlighted widespread burnout, emotional exhaustion, and job insecurity. Just a couple of results. 52% worry about job security, top source of stress. 32% have been harassed or threatened in the past year, most commonly online. Well, join the club. Unfortunately, if you are a public figure and if you are making statements, the online harassment is part of the deal, sadly. Overall well-being at work was described as solid, so that's good. 78% said their work gave them meaning and purpose. And despite the media industry's challenges, 73% said they were motivated and engaged. Those feeling pessimistic highlighted budget cuts, job losses, broken business models, declining quality and trust, and the threat of tech, especially AI and roles. To be honest, isn't that common in most industries? Budget cuts, job losses? Well, maybe not broken business models and declining trust, maybe not. That is kind of unique to the media industry. And as I've said, if the media industry wants to fix that, if they want to build trust, stop doing the current model that they're doing, which is one-sided biased reporting. Go to both sides, tell the story, in other words, report the facts and let people come to their own conclusion. But they don't seem to want to do that. One respondent said, quote, disinformation has created a lack of trust in the media. That statement alone sums up the wrong thought in some media circles, that it's all disinformation, but none of that's coming from the media. Our media, that is where some of the disinformation is coming from. Another said, well, millions of New Zealanders engage with local media every day. And that's true. They also engage with social media. And so that's just part of our consumption of information. And yeah, so interesting study, but I'm not sure it's different to many other industries. It's just that the trust thing is the key killer for the legacy media at the moment. Overseas, and actually I did find that quote from Abel. He said, the aim is not a two-state solution, but eradication of Israel. No one talks about the return of the captives. Guess they don't have a spine. That's a very good point, Abel, is that I'm not sure I've heard Chloe talk about the hostages. Maybe she has. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I'll be interested to just do a fact check on that. I don't want to do a Willow Jean Prime, Here's a story from overseas. Lindsay Smith, this woman, was barred after the club received the Newcastle club, which is in the Premier League in football in UK. The club received complaints about her social media posts, which included tweets expressing critical views about transgender people. She is now seeking damages. She wants the ban reversed. I mean, she's banned from attending a football game because she's done some hurty-feely tweets. Have you ever sat in a crowd at a Premier League football game? I took my family to Anfield to watch Liverpool play 2 Christmases ago. I tell you what, it's not G-rated, okay? It's not G-rated, some of the chants. And I won't tell you if my children actually joined in some of those chants. But apparently the first complaint was made by an unnamed individual. Oh, might be the same unnamed individual that complained about Family First that led to all our court cases. But the complaint said, quote, "If I were trans, I would feel extremely unsafe and incredibly discriminated towards had I had to share a space with someone openly transphobic." That was the complaint. Yes, they were scared of getting the seat next to the transphobic person in a 50,000 seat stadium and being upset by that. A second complaint claimed that she used her social media account to mix her Newcastle content, her football content, with transphobic rhetoric. Yeah, Britain is in a dark place on the whole free speech thing. It'll be interesting to see what happens on that. Marijuana. Trump has been talking. I just want to show you this clip from Trump talking about marijuana, and just have a listen to how he words it, because he's falling into the trap of the smokescreen of medicinal marijuana. Have a listen to his response to the question here, because there's a push on to basically legalize marijuana across the whole United States.
Right, there is reporting that the administration is going to reclassify marijuana. Would that send mixed messages that if marijuana is okay, some drugs are okay, but we're trying to clean up crime? How do they go hand in hand?
We're only looking at that. That's early, but somebody reported it, which is fine. We're looking at it. Some people like it. Some people hate it. Some people hate the whole concept of marijuana because if it does bad for the children, it does bad for people that are older than children. But we're looking at reclassification, and we'll make a determination over the next few weeks. And that determination hopefully will be the right one. It's a very complicated subject, the subject of marijuana. I've heard great things having to do with medical, and I've had bad things having to do with just about everything else. But medical and, for pain and various things, I've heard some pretty good things, but for other things, I've heard some pretty bad things.
Yeah, okay, so he's falling into the same trap that the Drug Foundation and the Greens tried to suck New Zealand into. What they do is they mix up recreational use, getting stoned, with claims that there is some medicinal benefits to the CBD, the non-psychoactive part of marijuana. And it was the same smokescreen that was put up in New Zealand. And that was one of our key messages, which I think won the referendum, was that we said, look, medicinal marijuana has already been legalized in New Zealand, but the referendum was about recreational use, getting high. And fortunately, New Zealand has understood that difference. Trump's going down the road of getting the two mixed up. And I mean, even the argument about medicinal marijuana has some questions. Interestingly, on the same day, this study was published in the Canadian Medical Journal. It said that the THC, the psychoactive content of cannabis, has quintupled in the past 2 decades. In other words, increased by 5 times. And that's the problem. We're not dealing with Woodstock weed or your parents' pot anymore. We're dealing with much more psychoactive substance in the cannabis. And they say the risk of cannabis-induced psychosis is elevated amongst those using this high-potency THC cannabis. And those who use cannabis are frequently are younger or are male. And what they did was they surveyed, they looked at studies of 9.8 million people in Ontario, Canada, where, remember, it is legal in Canada, and they found that people with an emergency department visit for cannabis use or cannabis use in psychosis, if they had an emergency department visit for cannabis use, they were 14 times more likely of developing a schizophrenia spectrum disorder within 3 years if they went to an emergency department with cannabis-induced psychosis, they had a 241-fold increase risk of developing schizophrenia spectrum disorder within 3 years than the general population. I mean, that is damning. And look, New Zealand dodged a bullet when we voted no to cannabis in 2020. And boy, the evidence just keeps pouring in. Philippa says regarding that UK story about Newcastle fan and the hurty tweets, my golly, she says, all of England should have been banned then when Beckham was playing. Exactly right. All the chanting, etc. And Trish says, people forget Palestinians are relatively new invented people who nobody wanted in their country. So Israel gave them some land to call their own. And now they give them food and medical supplies. Thanks, Israel. Yeah. Okay. And Philippa says, Chloe is a bully. That sort of behaviour wouldn't be tolerated in a school. So much for her lot pushing pink shirt, anti-bullying LGBTQ plus day. Oh, there we go. Rosie says, Luxon and Albo flew with the over-the-top helicopter company, which is owned by my dad's cousin. So there we are. That is all in the family. And Judith says, do people support Hamas because they are intimidated or because they really think Hamas is a good thing? Yeah, it's actually a very good question. Right, very excited. 2.5 weeks, and this is happening.
Hey guys, I'm Israel Folau.
And I'm Maria Folau.
And we're looking forward to sharing our story with you at the upcoming forum on the family in August.
It'll be the first time that we share our side of the story with you in New Zealand. We're excited to tell you about our experience, how much it has strengthened our faith, our marriage, and we hope that you feel very encouraged by it. We'll do an interview with Bob, and we hope you enjoy it.
Yep, and we have done that interview. It's in the can. It's ready to go. It is powerful. You will be encouraged. You'll be inspired. You might even shed a tear or two. You'll have a bit of a laugh as well. But that's an exclusive to the forum. So it's time to register, team, because registrations close, not this Sunday, but the following Sunday. Forumonthefamily.nz. Forumonthefamily.nz. Right, I am well over time. Thank you for watching, and cheers with my new cup. And we'll be back on Friday. Have a great day.